Always love when we get a chance to talk with Coach Herm Edwards. Coach, Jake Asman here in New York. Thanks so much for a couple minutes today. I mean, what a wild 24 hours of the NFL with the Micah trade, huh?
Yeah, that's Jerry Jones. He finds a way for the Dallas Cowboys to stay in the news. And they're in the news. There's no doubt about it. I think if you're Parsons, I think it's probably a sigh of relief in the fact that it's over and you're going to play football now. You're not in Dallas anymore, but actually you go to a team with the Packers that that all the blocking as far as how you turn the protection won't always go to you because of Gary. They've got a pretty good pass rusher there too. So all of a sudden you got another pass rusher to add along with Parsons going to Green Bay, and now their defense that was ranked 5th is probably got a lot better for that. Now, being the rest of Parsons as well, I know he went to Penn State, and he's used to the cold, and he played on the grass, but there's a difference playing on the grass and in turf. All of a sudden you go from, the season that he had playing 13 turf games last year, and now he's going to play 10 grass games. So he's going to play 7 games on the turf. So that's going to be interesting too.
Herm, you obviously know Brian Schottenheimer, and here he is getting his first opportunity to be an NFL head coach. What do you think he's thinking as this is unfolding here just days before his debut game as the Cowboys coach?
Well, look, he can't. He knows when you work for Jerry Jones. I mean, Jerry's going to do what Jerry does. And I think if you're Brian, all you can say is, hey, look, we're going to move on. It's going to be tough enough going to Philly on a Thursday night, and then we lost our best defensive player. So that doesn't bode well, but he can't worry about that stuff. He really can't. He's got to focus on the football team, get these guys ready to play because it's going to be a big game for them. It's a division game. They go to Philly. That's always, that's kind of a rivalry game. I can tell you that. I played in it a bunch of times, so I know how that game is played.
Well, from just a getting the team ready standpoint, Herm, if you were Brian Schottenheimer and you're trying to get the team ready to go, are you concerned about just the kind of the ripple effect of what trading a beloved player, best player on the team, you could argue, in Parsons, what that could do to the rest of the locker room and the morale in that room?
Well, a little bit, but, when this is going on, when this negotiation was going on, I'm pretty sure Brian was already talking to the team. I went through this with Larry Johnson when I was in Kansas City. Now, we eventually signed him. He stayed with the Chiefs, but the conversation with the team is real simple. This is business now, guys. It has nothing to do with Michael Parsons. We want him to be here. He's a great player, but this is the business part of it. And sometimes it doesn't work out, so he's already alerted the team that he's probably saying, I want him back. But at the end of the day, business is business. And we all have to understand that. And we all will be in this situation in our careers at one point, and it might not work out like we like.
Herm Edwards with us here, former head coach of the Jets, the Chiefs. You watch him on ESPN all the time where he covers, of course, the NFL. Do you feel like the Packers are now a legitimate Super Bowl contender in the NFC? Where would you rank them amongst the top teams in that conference?
Well, it's a pretty good conference, actually, with the Vikings sitting over there. Now, they got a young quarterback that's going to play, and obviously the Lions, who lost their offensive coordinator. So now if you look at the Packers, they added a dynamic player to their defense. And, they were 11-7. They were 5-1 in the division, only lost one division game. Now all of a sudden their defense is better. And they had a pretty good defense last year. They were ranked 5th in the league. So, right now with Parsons on your defense and the way you played last year, yeah, you got to be the favorite to win the division, right? I mean, that's just how I look at it. And the fact that with the losses of other teams, I think Chicago's going to be better. If you watch Caleb Williams in the preseason with Ben Johnson being the coach, he's not going to take 68 sacks like he did last year. When you watch him in the preseason, he got rid of the ball. He was on time. I mean, he looked like a different quarterback. Now, does that hurt Jared Goff? Jared Goff had Ben Johnson as the play caller. Detroit loses both their coordinators. Yeah, you can say, well, they're only coaches. Yeah, but they're familiar with the players during games. And that's probably the most important thing. So there's going to be some adjustment there.
Herm Edwards is our guest here on the Michael Kay Show. Jake Asman in for Michael till 3 o'clock. You mentioned the Lions losing their offensive coordinator. They, of course, also lost their defensive coordinator, who's now the head coach of the NYJ, one of your former players in Aaron Glenn. Coach, your thoughts on AG and what the expectations you have for the Jets in year one with Aaron Glenn?
Well, I think he'll bring continuity. The players will ultimately respect him because he's a former player. But it's not so much about respecting you. He's going to have to earn their trust. And that happens a lot of times when you hit some bad spots. How do you react to that? And the Jets will probably hit some bad spots, this season. They'll hit a string of, well, here we go. How does he act? How does he handle the team? So I think the players, going to love him as a coach. But at the end of the day, you got to win. And, they're in a division that it's kind of interesting when you look at that division over there. Are the Patriots better? They're probably going to be better, right? I mean, that's how I kind of look at it when I watch them in the preseason. Look at that, their coach Rabel. He understands the temperament of how they should play in New England. I think they will improve. The Miami Dolphins, they're a team that they're head scratchers, right? You always scratch your head when you watch the Dolphins. First couple of years when Tua was there, they were this fantastic offense, and all of a sudden now they're kind of trying to find themselves. The team that everybody's chasing is the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. I mean, that's the team, in my opinion, you got to beat in that division. They're one of the top 5 teams in the National Football League. You think about the Buffalo Bills.
Coach, when you took over the Jets going into that 2001 season, what do you remember about Aaron Glenn? Because at that point, he'd been in the league a while. He'd been a multi-time Pro Bowler. What were your memories coaching AG for that 1 year you had him?
Well, he's a pro and a student of the game, was searching for knowledge. Even at that point in his career, I was a different coach. I was bringing in a different system. He wanted to learn that system. You could tell he was going to be a coach. You just had that feeling. I said, at the end of the day, this guy's going to be a coach one day. And obviously he's done that and done a nice job of it. And I think what's good for him is he goes back to the Jets. He understands the temperature of New York. He played in it, right? And it's different. When you're the coach in New York, it's different. And I'll flat tell you that. It's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of voices. There's a lot of noise outside the building in New York now. And how he handles that when they hit some tough spots will be very important. I think he'll handle it fine. I just think it's a team that has a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. The key will be the consistent play of the quarterback. Can the quarterback play consistent enough to keep these guys in games? And if they can do that, they'll be better this year.
They want to seemingly run the ball a lot. They have 3 really good running backs. We know Justin Fields could run as well. If you're Aaron Glenn, are you confident in the personnel you have? Do you think you could design a real offense where you ground and pound and try and win games by just rushing the football? And
if that's your mode of operation right now, that's what you do. And you preach to the team that, we're going to take the air out of the ball. In other words, it's not going to be teams that we play. It's not going to be 12 to 14 possessions. We're going to try to keep it down to 10 possessions. And we want to milk the clock. We want to play good defense. We want to play special teams. You can still do that. I mean, you can still play that way. Now, it's boring to the fans because fans want to see scoring. But if you're winning that way, fans don't care. As long as you can win. And I think if they can do that and stay in games, they got a chance because they have some dynamic players on offense now. It's just a matter of, can they keep the game in touch where Fields doesn't have to go back and he's down by 10 points in the fourth quarter and he's got to throw it all over the place because if that's the case, we're not quite for sure what's going to happen.
Herm Edwards, our guest here on 880 ESPN New York, Jake Asman, 8 for K till 3 o'clock. You mentioned just the loud noises having to be, the Jet coach and the New York media market. What would be the biggest piece of advice you'd give to your former player, Aaron Glenn, going into year one?
Just be you, and that's good enough. And be as honest as you can. Give the media the ability to do their job, but you protect your football team. That's important. And I think if you understand that, just be consistent. Just as long as you're consistent and you don't have these ups and downs. I mean, you'll be fine. I mean, and like I said, it's noisy. But after a while, it's like, hey, just do what we do. And that's kind of I took on it that way. And it was – I enjoyed it, to be quite honest. I had a blast. I've had a pretty good relationship with the media, I thought. I gave them enough information so they could do their jobs. And I do know this. I always protected the players because that's part of your job, too. You got to protect the players.
Switching to the Giants, Herm, I mean, they're in an interesting spot because they have Russell Wilson, of course, but they drafted Jackson Dart behind him. You still got Jameis Winston there as well. If you're Brian Dable, what to you is the ideal scenario for how you're handling the quarterback situation this season?
Well, they got a pretty rough start, right? Coming out, and I think Russell, the first four are really bad, all playoff teams. Well, that being said, you're going to find out a lot about your team, but also I think when Russell Wilson goes to that stretch, then you got to look at, what's your record, right? If you're 500, you're going, oh, okay. If you're 1-3 and you're not getting a lot out of the quarterback, guess what? I'm putting the other guy in. I think the other guy is fantastic. I do. I think they got themselves a really good quarterback. I mean, that's just me. I mean, it's just, I'm not the Giants coach. Not saying I'm trying to tell him what to do. Coach knows his team better than me. But I do know one thing. If I listen to my eyes and what I see when I see him play, they're not even close. He's going to make mistakes. That young guy, he'll make some mistakes. But I tell you what, he's really good. I think he's really good. So it'll be kind of a fun watch. And I think the Giants will be a lot better. I mean, they'll be able to run the ball. The runner they got out of Arizona State, he's a big-time running back now. He's a load now. He's hard to bring down. They can be in a lot of 2nd and 4s, which is a good down for offense. It's a good down for the quarterback. You want to be in 2nd and 4 a lot in football. If you can get to that 2nd and 4, you control the game.
Coach, you mentioned you like Jackson Dart. What about his game has really stood out to you that you like him so much?
Well, he reminds me a lot, and I said this earlier, if your coach, and you just close your eyes now, he's not as big, but has the same kind of acumen. He reminds me of Josh Allen. Josh Allen's a little bit taller, weighs probably about 10, 15 more pounds, but same attributes. He can run. He can throw the ball anywhere on the football field. He's studying the pocket when he needs to be. He can play off schedule. He plays off schedule pretty good. I just like the guy. He's got something to him, and all you got to do is look at it. Just watch I always say, football is not hard. The worst thing about football? Jerseys. Because you put the number on the back of the jersey and people know who that guy is. But if you didn't put any numbers on the back of jerseys and you watch guys play, like if you went to the park and you were playing in a pickup game and you walked up and said, I got next. You didn't know the guys. You just say, hey, man, and you're watching guys play. I got to take 3 guys. You watch them play and you go, I'm taking that guy with the purple hair. Oh, and that guy got, he got 2 different kind of shoes on. I like that guy. You won't worry about all that other stuff. Just pick the best players. Well, if you look at them play, you go, that quarterback, he's pretty good. The only thing he doesn't have is what? Experience. How do you get experience? Got to play.
Coach, always a pleasure. Love your insight, and I can't thank you enough for a couple minutes today, and looking forward to watching you all season long on ESPN.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Handoff, Sean Green runs right, gets to the edge, stiff arms a man, 10, 5, touchdown! The Jets are going to win it in style here in New England. 1:41 to go, and the Jets celebrate in the Patriots' ball yard.
The greatest day of my life, January 16th, 2011. Jets beat the Pats, advanced to the AFC title game for the 2nd year in a row. They haven't been back in the playoffs since. They haven't won a playoff game since. Hopefully that changes this year with Aaron Glenn in his first year as the head coach. For more on the Jets, we check in with the guy whose voice you just heard, the radio play-by-play voice of the Jets since 2002. ESPN's Bob Wischusen joins us now. Bob, always appreciate your time. Football season is coming up. I know you're calling Syracuse, Tennessee on Saturday, so let's go. We made it.
Yeah, and South Carolina, Virginia Tech on Sunday. So doubleheader this week.
Wow.
It's good to have a football game on Sunday as well. I'm kind of used to that. And then that was a good memory, though. Hopefully this season sounds a little like that season by the time the year's over.
Bob, take us through the travel for that. So you're going to be calling Syracuse versus Tennessee. That game's in Atlanta. Is it multiple flights, one flight? How does that work?
Well, I'm lucky. Both games are in Atlanta.
Oh, even better. Okay.
Yeah, even better. Yeah, a game Saturday and a game Sunday, both at Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. So it's a one-stop shop.
Awesome. Well, as far as the Jets and their season, what have been your impressions on Aaron Glenn so far through the preseason? And here we go, just 10 days to go until Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers come to town.
Yeah, I think he's been the genuine article. I think he's come as advertised, from tackling to the ground in practice to having officials at every practice throwing flags as if it's a game to, playing the starters in the preseason more than most teams have played them and a lot more than previous Jet regimes have played them. I think he wanted his team calloused and toughened up and, feeling like they've played some football already, some real football by the time the season starts. And I think that's been mission accomplished. And I think it's also fun and kind of refreshing, how much you can see that this means to him. To be back in these colors, where he played. He got emotional a couple of times talking about it in press conferences during training camp. This really matters to him to be back here, and it shows.
And I feel like for a first-time coach, Bob, stepping into this media market, it could be really difficult. But I think the fact that he was a player here, he, of course, got his scouting career started here before he shifted over to being a coach. I feel like that's going to help him compared to maybe some other first-time coaches the Jets have hired that step into this market, and it could be really tough.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, he knows 100% because he's worn the uniform, been in that locker room, been with, some of the members of the media that are still covering the team to this day. He will go into this and is going into all of this with eyes wide open.
Bob Wischusen, radio voice of the Jets, with us here. Bob, as far as the quarterback situation, are you optimistic about Justin Fields with this offense? It was reportedly an up-and-down preseason, or up-and-down, I should say, training camp. We saw what he did in the preseason, some good, some bad. How do you feel about the Jets' new starting quarterback going into Week 1?
Yeah, to me, and this is the case with any quarterback in the NFL, because you will be asked to do this, because you can't not do this in the NFL and succeed, throwing from the pocket with accuracy. And, I know Darren Muji talked about this earlier today, I guess, in his press conference. You have seen quarterbacks develop. It's funny. Quarterback, for whatever reason, has become a position where development isn't allowed anymore. It's basically, can you do this right away? And if you can't, we're done with you. And that's not the way we used to treat quarterbacks. I'm not only old enough to remember, I was doing Jet games when Chad Pennington sat the bench for 2.5 years until, as a first-round draft choice, he finally got the chance to play. And I say finally got the chance to play because that's what it seems like now. It seems like if you're a first-round draft choice in the NFL as a quarterback and you get to Week 5 and you haven't played, that's a long time. He sat for 2.5 years. But how much more prepared developmentally did he look when he came into play 2.5 years into his career than he probably would have if it was 2.5 games into his career? So, I think for whatever reason, I guess just because of the media attention paid to guys that get drafted at the top of the draft, fan pressure, media pressure, owner pressure, sometimes, you're a bad team and you draft a guy in the top 5, and everybody wants that guy to immediately come in and be the savior, and all of that gets thrust onto his shoulders immediately, and no development is allowed. And should the Browns have done that with Baker Mayfield? Should the Jets have done that with Sam Darnold and then with, some of the other guys, that they've drafted at the top of the draft? Wilson, like the whole group. It's debatable because these guys need a chance to maybe grow a little bit. Now, look at Justin Fields. This is stop 3. Maybe that, armadillo skin will show a little bit from the previous stops. And he'd just be a different player 3 or 4 years in than he was when he first got drafted. And I'm hoping that for him because, all the tools are there. It's easy to see why someone would quickly fall in love with Justin Fields as a player. He's such a dynamic athlete, but you have to be able to throw with accuracy from the pocket, and hopefully he's developing that.
Bob Wischusen with us here on the Michael K. Show. Jake Asman in for Michael. When it comes to the offense, too, we know that they want to run the ball. This might be the most run-heavy team the Jets will put on a field since those Rex Ryan days with ground and pound. Do they have the personnel, though, in your opinion, to have a very successful rushing attack?
They do. I mean, they've got a great stable of running backs. They've definitely, I mean, that's something that I'm kind of optimistic for Justin Fields' sake about as well. This is probably the best job from a personnel standpoint they've been able to do since they had Mark Sanchez of build an offensive line, get a dynamic tight end, have a stable of running backs, and insulate the quarterback a little bit so it's not all about him the whole time. And doesn't have to be all about him the whole time. It takes some pressure off of him. Now, having said that, you can't win in the NFL unless you have explosiveness to your offense. And explosive plays in the NFL come from a downfield passing attack. So, pushing the ball down the field through the air has to be part of what you do. It's just too hard to win and score having 10, 11, 12-play drives over and over and over again because you're leaning on your run game so much. You don't run the triple option in the NFL. It's, again, you have to be able to throw with some accuracy from the pocket, but being able to throw off play action because teams are afraid of how well you're running the ball is a huge weapon. Maybe the Jets will be able to, utilize that with Fields. So, yeah, I think they're certainly going to try to lean on their run game first and foremost, but there has to be a balance.
Are you concerned with the wide receiver depth? We know about Garrett Wilson, but after that, a lot of unknowns. And, of course, with Mason Taylor at the tight end spot, I like him a lot, but he is a rookie stepping into that spot, which could be difficult. Your thoughts on the skill position players that Fields will be throwing to?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think on a team that might have another truly complementary receiver to Garrett Wilson, if you got to say the Reynolds, Lazard part of the depth chart, maybe they would be kind of battling it out for the 3-4 spots. But the Jets, you're right, they don't really have that kind of clear-cut 1A receiver. But receivers are a plentiful position in the NFL. Receiver is oftentimes a spot that you can go out and fill through other teams' cuts or through a trade or, I'll be curious to see if they decide at some point that, they want to pull the trigger and try and bring another receiver in. That's certainly possible, but Reynolds a veteran, Lazard's a veteran. They did draft some speed, that's for sure. I mean, that was intriguing watching, some of those guys fly around in the preseason. So I don't think that the wide receiver position is as much of a question mark as other people might think, but do I think they could potentially go out and add? Yeah, they could certainly add in that room.
How about the defense? Are you expecting the Jet defense to be a lot closer to the team they were defensively in 2022 and 2023 under Aaron Glenn and now Steve Wilks, or is the Jet defense once again going to be in some trouble this year?
No, I'm optimistic as well. Obviously, safety, a little bit of a concern. I do think that Brandon Stevens at the corner opposite Sauce Gardner has looked great. To me, he's been, of all of the new faces that they brought in, maybe the most impressive. If Jermaine Johnson comes back and can be healthy and even, a replica of what he was before he got hurt, and you have the bookend with Will McDonald pass rush tandem, Harrison Phillips is, I think, a pretty proven run stopper to play alongside Quinnen Williams. I think they've got a pretty complete defense. I think their biggest problem last year, and even the last couple of years, they haven't taken the ball away as much as good defenses need to, and especially as much as the Jets have needed to, because, again, even with the optimism with the offense, even with the ability to run the ball, the stable of running backs, adding, first-round draft choices the last couple of years of tackle, I don't know that the Jet offense is going to be one that's going to be averaging more than 20, 21, 22 points a game. So the defense, A, is going to have to be, stingy. They're going to have to be a team that's going to hold the opposition under 24 points a game to give yourself a chance to win, I think. And B, you can make life on your offense incredibly easy just by taking the ball away occasionally. Flip the field. If not score yourself, give them a short field. And that was something that didn't happen the last couple of years nearly as much as it probably needs to. And I think we'll need to again this year.
Final question for you, Bob. You've been calling the Jets on radio since 2002. What is the best Jets game that you've ever called in your career?
Well, that one that you played the highlight from was fun. I mean, being a whatever they were, like a, 17, 18, 19-point underdog in New England, going up there and winning a playoff game was a lot of fun. That's certainly the first one that jumps to mind. Right when we first started, there was an overtime playoff win they had in San Diego against the Chargers way back when. I think Doug Bryan won it on a field goal. Drew Brees was the quarterback in San Diego at that point. That's how far we're going back. I mean, there have been some fun ones. Even the home playoff win they had against Jacksonville my first year. Against Indy, my first year of doing all of the games. Haven't had a home playoff game since. So I would really like to, at some point in the not-too-distant future, be sitting in MetLife Stadium for a playoff game and hearing what the place sounds like the first chance that Jet fans get a chance to have a home playoff game, a playoff game in their building. That would be fun.
Bob, have a great season. Good luck with the 2 college games you're calling over the weekend, and can't wait to hear you back on the radio calling the Jets this year.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Excited about our next guest. Always love a chance to talk some football with him. You watch him on SNY, part of SNY's Jets coverage, pre and post. He's on NBC, covering the NFL draft, hosting Badlands on Patreon, the Mets pod with SNY. He does a million different things, and he's kind enough with his time. Connor Rogers joins us here on the Michael K. Show with Jake Asman. In for Michael. Connor, always appreciate it, my friend. How are you?
Jake, I'm doing great, man. What's happening?
So, what was your reaction yesterday, Connor, to the Parsons trade? What were you doing? What was the initial thought when you saw that?
Oh, man. I think I was right in between a couple things. We actually were getting ready for our Big Ten pregame show that starts tonight for Illinois and Western Illinois, and we got Michigan, New Mexico tomorrow night. So we were kind of getting ready for that, and right in between that and recording NFL Stock Exchange, this trade comes through on my drive home where I'm just like, you've got to – not that you've got to be kidding me, because this is one of those situations that I think a lot of people wanted to believe it just wouldn't happen because they're so bought in that Jerry Jones feeds off the drama, likes the publicity. But I did think this one took a turn after a couple of weeks ago Micah Parsons put out that very long public note on Twitter and a couple of different social media formats explaining – everything that happened, and not only how insulted he was, but it just felt like it had reached a point where both sides were not going to find a middle point. And, obviously his lack of participation this summer, but we've seen that with a lot of different players. And the fact that, this is kind of who the Cowboys are right now. They either drag out these extensions and then they end up overpaying, or they just don't find a way and they kind of get stuck in their ways and say, hey, no player is bigger than, how they view America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't like the value. I didn't like the return on this trade. Micah Parsons is an incredible player. I'm sure there's a lot of New York Giant fans that woke up with a smile on their face this morning right now, knowing that guy's out of the division for the foreseeable future. And I just didn't think the Cowboys did very good on the return. Kenny Clark is an aging defensive tackle coming off of his worst year, and they got 2 first-round picks that project to be outside of the top 23 selections in the NFL draft. So I don't care how good a draft is. And listen, I do that for a living, and I think these drafts coming up are going to be pretty good. You're not getting to Micah Parsons with one of those 2 picks.
How about the fact, Connor, that Joe Douglas, for all his flaws, he could say that he got more for Jamal Adams than the Cowboys that Jerry Jones got for Micah Parsons?
Yeah, it was a massive overpay from Seattle, and one of the better things that Joe Douglas did during his tenure here, and, what those picks ultimately turn into as well. So, it's, what happens in these situations, Jake, and it happened with Jamal Adams, which did make that return so particularly surprising, is the number the player is due. And obviously the Packers and Micah Parsons' agency had already figured all of this out before the trade. That limits the value so often, where you see capable wide receivers get traded for 4th and 5th round picks and running backs get moved for nothing. And at the end of the day, though, Micah Parsons was an outlier. He is so good. So the fact that he was almost going to be getting $50 million a year, he's going to be getting a quarterback contract, didn't, deter a team like Green Bay. They were still willing to give up the multiple first-round picks as draft capital, a player that they liked a lot in Kenny Clark. Once again, I think he is trending the wrong way, but they liked him a lot still. He meant a lot to that franchise. And, Yeah, it does speak volumes how much NFL trades have changed, and it feels like we're not going to see a Jamal Adams-esque return for quite some time.
Connor Rogers from SNY and NBC with us here as we talk all things football on a Football Friday. College football, of course, getting underway all weekend long, and the Jets and the Giants in action next Sunday. Connor, as far as the Jets, we'll start with them here. Give us your thoughts on the Jets' 53-man roster. Anything surprise you? How do you feel about this team entering Week 1?
Well, I thought they did some really good things on the back end of the roster. I mean, the claim of Esapole, the Chiefs' undrafted free agent offensive lineman, and had a great summer for them. I know some fans might not care about the back end of the roster, but getting developmental offensive linemen is really, really important in this league. And I think that was a savvy move by Darren Muji and company, because this was somebody to me that had a draftable grade. He didn't start playing football till a couple of years ago. He got to finish his college career at Washington State and showed a lot of promising flashes. So I like getting somebody like that in the program and swiping him from the roster. And the most notable thing, though, this team did before cut day even happened was they figured out how to get capable defensive tackles to play alongside Quentin Williams for day 3 draft capital. That was very savvy, and it was much needed. I didn't think they did a good job in that department during free agency or the NFL draft, and it feels like they made up for it by trading for Harrison Phillips from the Vikings, who could be your starting nose tackle alongside Quentin Williams. And then just as importantly, getting a guy like Jawan Briggs, a younger player that can really be a power player and a rotational run stopper as well, because we know how often injuries happen in this league, especially in the trenches, and we know how often guys are rotated no matter what scheme you're playing. So, listen, the Jets still have problems at wide receiver. Nobody's shying away from that. Justin Fields is going to have to prove that he could be a capable passer in this league. But what was non-negotiable to me was going into the league as a uncompetitive run defense, which I thought they were last year. I think these moves have helped them turn the corner for that area.
You bring up the wide receiver situation. I was going there next. So Darren Muji came out yesterday. He tried to pump up the room. He says he feels really good about that room, but I think you and I aren't necessarily buying that. Is there any move you think the Jets could potentially make from now until Week 1 to try and get someone else in that room next to Garrett Wilson?
The options weren't great, and the not-so-great options dried up, right? It didn't look like Amari Cooper had anything left in the tank at the end of last year, and he ends up going back to the Raiders anyway. You know, Adam Thielen, the Panthers really didn't want to give him up, but they said, okay, let's move forward with our young guys and get some draft capital, and the Vikings were very aggressive in getting a wide receiver because Jordan Addison is suspended. They're dealing with injuries in that group. Justin Jefferson's been banged up this summer. He's going to be fine, but they really needed another guy during Addison's suspension. So I think when it came down to it, you know, they were just outbid in areas, and I don't even know how aggressive they ultimately were. And that's a situation, right? It kind of reminds me of this a little bit, Jake. Maybe this isn't a perfect example, but, you know, a lot of baseball teams every winter, they don't like to be big players in the relief market because there's a lot of risk. Those guys might not work out. But then when it comes to the MLB trade deadline, these teams pay egregious prices for relievers. Let's be real with the New York Jets right now. They didn't go out in free agency and get a capable wide receiver to play opposite Garrett Wilson. You know, obviously you have some 3s and 4s in Josh Reynolds, and, you know, if Alan Lazard is healthy, I would label him in that number 3 or number 4 at best kind of category. And they didn't really do that in the draft. Arian Smith is a developmental player. He's had moments, but he's also shown why he's a developmental player. He's not ready to be a number 2 in an NFL offense. We'll see if he's ready to be a number 3 at any point as well. And then you get to this point, and it kind of feels a little comparable to the MLB trade deadline where you're looking around and going, okay, there's some options out there, some good, some not so good, and are we going to pay the price to go get some of these guys, even if it is some day 3 capital in terms of a 5th or a 4th round pick? And I don't know. They just kind of want to go into the season as they are, and I think ultimately it will hurt them a little bit. I don't think this wide receiver room is going to be good enough to get the job done, but I felt like they kind of made this bet in the spring, and they are going to be a very, very run-heavy football team.
Connor Rogers with us here on the Michael K. Show. Jake Asman in for Michael. Connor on the SNY Jets coverage pre and post. You watch him on NBC Sports as well. You know, just staying with the point you made at the end there, right? We know they want to run the ball, but from what you've seen this summer, Connor, from what you've heard, what is the confidence the Jet fans should have that they got the right personnel, they got the right coaching staff that could actually scheme up a successful rushing attack?
So it's funny. I think they have the right personnel. I think this offensive line is good. I think they have the right coaching. You know, a lot of these guys brought over from the Lions staff. I think the biggest issue is, will they be a capable enough passing team to open up enough for the run? Because if you can't throw the ball, I don't care if you have 5 Jonathan Ogdens on the offensive line and, with name your pick, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders getting the ball. If the defense stacks the box or just loads the box and sells out against the run, you have to keep them honest and throw the football. So that's going to be really important for the Jets to not throw for 300 yards a game, but they're going to have to throw for around 200 yards a game at times, right? I know it sounds like such a low bar in this modern era, but they're going to have to show teams that, hey, with all the space you're giving us because how you're defending us, we need to show that we actually have a threat. And I think that was some of the thought with drafting the speed of Arian Smith. We'll see how that works out. It was definitely a lot of the thought of drafting Mason Taylor, a guy that could play on the line of scrimmage as a blocker, but also do some work getting off the line of scrimmage into his routes. So I think that the biggest variable, though, besides all that, Jake, is that, I was out there during the summer at times, and obviously we watched preseason. They're keeping it really close to the vest with what their designed run game looks like around Justin Fields. And that's going to be a really big aspect of this offense. They are not afraid to have Justin Fields forget scrambling. We know how good he is at that, but a designed runner with some zone read options, some RPO. They didn't show a ton of it. It'll be a big part of their offense. What kind of needle mover is that when the lights are actually bright?
Connor Rogers with us here. Moving to the Giants, because I think you have a very unique angle on the Jackson Dart conversation that's been happening the last couple of weeks. It feels like there are a lot of Giants fans. There's a lot of people in the media now making the case, hey, just start Dart right away. I want to go back to how you evaluated Dart coming out of Ole Miss. And from what you've seen from him this summer, do you think Brian Dable should actually bypass Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and start the rookie right away?
No, I think the Giants are doing the right thing. And sometimes doing the right thing, you take a lot of flack for that, right? You get a lot of outside noise. Yeah, it's great that Jackson Dart looked the part this summer, and he was productive against, backup defenses. You'd rather him be productive than struggle against backup defenses. So he looked really good. He looked confident. We saw the athleticism. But just because he started a couple of years in college doesn't mean there's things that the Giants – number one, it's hard just being thrown into the league. And this Giants schedule is no joke. I think that's a big part of what the Giants are thinking here. Now, there's not a lot of soft landing spots, but – are you doing the right thing by, week 3, you're playing the Chiefs, week 4, you're playing the Chargers? I get it that now it's going to look like, some people expect the Commanders to be a regression team. Some people are completely out on the Cowboys. Now they traded Micah Parsons. The Giants got to go to Dallas and prove that they're turning the corner. That doesn't just happen because one guy was moved. I don't know if that should be on the shoulders of a rookie that still needs some time. I thought he played quicker and more confident than what I saw in college at times, where it always felt like his internal clock was a second slow when he had some of those turnovers or some misses. But why rush that right now? Why you went out and got Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston so you wouldn't have to do that to him? Maybe you find a soft landing spot. And Jake, it's much easier to pull the plug on Russell Wilson for Jackson Dart than it is Jackson Dart plays these first 4 games. It's a little bit of a struggle. He looks overwhelmed. They're trying to get in sync with not all these guys he's been throwing to all summer. Malik Neighbors has missed a lot of time. And then you pull the plug on him to go back to him later. I don't like that. So I give Brian Dable and Joe Schoen, it hasn't been a good couple of years for them. I give them a lot of credit for sticking to this plan. It's the right move for right now.
How do you think they handle just who the backup is to Russ, right? You still have Jameis there. Like, would you have Dart be inactive so you wouldn't have to worry at all about him being thrusted in if something happened to Russ? How would you handle QB2 and QB3 if you were Brian Dable?
Yeah, that's one where it's really interesting, right? Because if Russ takes one hit, everything I just said could go out the window if Dart is the QB2. This wouldn't be popular, but I think at least for the first maybe 4 games, I might even have Jameis as the QB2. When you get to the point of the schedule, the problem is you get the Saints, right, in week 5. But then you have the Eagles and Broncos as your next 3 games. The Eagles, Broncos, Eagles is the order of that. So there's not a soft landing spot, so maybe that makes it a little easier for them to convince themselves, okay, he could be the backup. He won't be thrown out there immediately. If something happened to Russ, we feel good enough about adjusting on the fly with him. They know, though, mentally where he's at better than any of us. If they feel like he's grasped the offense where they look at it and they think going into the week, even though Russ is the starter, Dart's preparing like one, then he could be the second quarterback. But that's something that only the Giants know right now, and they're going to show their hands soon.
Connor, I know it's about to be super, super busy for you, so really appreciate your time. Continued success. Excited to watch you on NBC all year long with the Big Ten coverage. That's awesome, man. Congrats again.
Thanks so much, Jake. Really appreciate it, man. Have a great weekend.
Back here on the Michael K. Show, Jake Asman in for Michael all week long, taking you till 3 o'clock. And joining us right now is a new teammate, a new member of the ESPN family. He also happens to be an old member of the ESPN family. Rich Eisen, kind enough to give us some time live from his studio. And Rich, your show, The Rich Eisen Show, is going to be airing on 1050 ESPN New York. So really appreciate you taking the time to join us and talk to the New York audience.
You got it. Starts September 2nd. So right away, next Tuesday, as soon as the calendar turns to September and we're done with the first massive week of college football that's coming up this weekend. And then it's time for the National Football League to take center stage. And so my show that's been on the air since 2014, and the guy you're sitting in for, Michael K, has been on quite a bit. I've known Michael since back in the day with my ESPN 1.0 world. It's going to, start on ESPN Radio, Disney Plus for those who want to see it. And of course the ESPN app that's available everywhere. I'm really fired up, Jake.
Rich, for you, how did you get back in terms with ESPN? How did all this kind of come together? I think for so many sports fans out there, it came as a huge surprise. Wow, Rich Eisen's joining ESPN.
Well, I got to be honest with you, man. It's just a blessing for me to be able to do a show like this, have ESPN become interested in wanting a show like this, months in advance of being interested in the NFL Network as well. So I'm just like I said, fired up, and it's football season, so it's perfect timing.
I mean, you can't ask for better timing to launch a brand new show. Rich Eisen, of course, with us here on ESPN New York. I mean, we could start with our New York Jets. I mean, the last time I spoke to you was at the Combine about a year and a half ago. We still had a lot of optimism for Aaron Rodgers coming back and hopefully being the answer for this team. A lot has, of course, changed since then. Aaron Glenn going into year one. How do you feel about our New York Jets?
Well, I got to be honest with you, man. The moves that the Jets made in this offseason were all, check the box moves that they needed to do. They needed to find a new head coach, and they needed to find a new quarterback, I believe. I know there was a conversation about maybe having Aaron Rodgers back for one more year. But, if you're going to start fresh, if you're going to start with a new head coach, the Aaron that you'd want to have set the tone, set the standard, as well as the tone should be the head coach, not the quarterback. And that's why I think Rodgers is actually going to have a good run, if not just 1 year, but however long he stays in Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be better for him that, again, he's joining an established organization with a coach that's not going anywhere. And the organization in Pittsburgh is not looking at Aaron in the same way the Jets did to say to Aaron Rodgers, tell us how it's done. Show us how it's done. The head coach can take care of the defense, but everything else, you need to show us how it is done. And that just clearly wasn't working for the Jets. So to go into their past and get somebody who was a former first-round pick from the Parcells era in Aaron Glenn and give him his first shot as being an HC in the NFL, I think that was a wise maneuver. And then on top of it, at the quarterback spot, to pay Justin Fields a fraction of what franchise quarterbacks are being paid in the NFL for a 2-year run with a guy with a massive upside at an age where quarterbacks are beginning to find their footing in the NFL in different places. I'm not saying he's going to be as successful as, say, Mayfield or Jared Goff, or even, former Jet and Sam Darnold. But for him to come to the Jets and be told, this is your team, that's your former teammate from Ohio State, who's now being freshly paid. Another smart move for the Jets to pay their rookies of the year from a couple of years ago on offense and defense with Sauce Gardner, for Sauce, who clearly needed to be taken aside after his aside on a social media post to say for him to reach out to T. Higgins to come to the Jets. And he was essentially saying, no, it's not what I'm going to do. For the Jets to basically bring him into the fold financially, these are all smart moves, and we'll see if they work out for the Jets. But I think Jet fans should feel good about the direction based on certainly over the last 2 years.
The voice you hear is Rich Eisen. He's joining the ESPN family of networks Tuesday, September 2nd. You can hear Rich's show on 10:50 a.m. from 12 to 3. And Rich, staying with the Jets, right? You bring up, of course, Aaron Glenn coming on board. I'm just very nervous as a Jet fan for week one in particular because
Sure.
I go back to Rex Ryan's first year, and he said he wasn't going to kiss Brady and Belichick's rings, and the Jets went out there in 2009, and they won that first matchup. They started 3-0, and I think there was a lot of buy-in from the fan base. I get very nervous about, here we go, Aaron Rodgers, week one, he's going to play great, and it's SOJ, same old Jets all over again. Do you get that feeling as a crazy diehard as well? Just your thoughts on this week one matchup against Rodgers?
Well, with 2 home dates against Pittsburgh and Buffalo and at Tampa, I would take, if you're a Jet fan, a 3-0 start. Just take it one at a time, man. You just got to sit here and think when you're in the position that you're in, as the Jets were after last year's season was over. Who do you hire as a new coach? What does that new coach want to do with a new general manager at the quarterback spot? And then what are your priorities once you settle that? And again, the Jets to hire Aaron Glenn, which is, again, a smart hire from the legacy point of view, from the point of view of what you see from his body of work. And then you take a shot at Justin Fields. You take a look at the rest of what was available to them. There were veteran quarterbacks out there. I don't think Matthew Stafford was going to come to New York. You weren't going to keep Aaron Rodgers. You weren't taking Russell Wilson. You weren't going to try and trade for Kirk Cousins. Getting Justin Fields at the price and at the age that he's at is a smart play. Let's see what you can do. And then again, what you need to do to roster build. You need to tell Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, you're ours. And as a matter of fact, we're not going to make you go through what Micah Parsons is going through. We're not going to make you wait. We're not going to make you wonder if you're going in this playing season. Unfortunately, it does appear that's what Breece Hall is going to have to go through. But we'll see. These are all just bets and moments that franchises think about and let the chips fall. I think the Jets made smart moves, and we will just see if the football gods are with them.
Rich Eisen from the NFL Network, ESPN, with us here on the Michael K. Show. Jake Asman in for Michael till 3 o'clock. How about your thoughts on the Giants? A lot of Giants fans called in today, called in all week. They want to see Jackson Dart play as quickly as possible. We know Brian Daboll has said Russell Wilson's the starter. Your thoughts on their season and how things are going to play out with the quarterback situation with Big Blue?
I think Jackson Dart has got a swagger about him, and he's got an aura about him. And if you're the Giants, one way to take that swagger and aura and put it at risk is to throw him in Washington, D.C. to start the season, and then in Dallas to follow it up in week 2, and then have him welcome the Giants fans into MetLife for their first home game against the Kansas City Chiefs on a Sunday night, and then have Jim Harbaugh's Chargers come in the next week. There's a visit to New Orleans before there's a short week game against the defending world champs, who they play again 2 weeks later after visiting Denver. And if you want to put Jackson Dart's swagger at risk, you throw him into that deep end of the pool, and instead you let Russell Wilson attempt to navigate all that. And we will see how the Giants come through that 8-game stretch. If they're 5-3, you don't have to make a move to Jackson Dart. If you're 4-4, you don't have to make a move to Jackson Dart. If you're 3-5, 2-6, heaven forbid, worse than that, that's when you begin to make a maneuver like that. I think the world of Brian Daboll. I think if you want to have somebody bring a quarterback along, he's that guy. All you got to do is see what he was doing on the staff of Alabama when Tua and Jalen Hurts were there. He was the guy in Buffalo when Josh Allen arrived. He's not a piker when it comes to this sort of thing. He did win Coach of the Year with Daniel Jones, and they might have gotten overheated in a way that created a front office conundrum with who do you franchise and who do you sign long-term. And I think we all know the Giants made wrong decisions on who to franchise and who to long-term when it came to Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. But we are where we are. And with the Giants' first 8 games, I think Daboll is making a smart move. Let Jake Jackson Dart sit in a highly veteran, high energy with Russ and Jameis quarterback room and soak it in and see how it plays out. But I think Russ is starting his first game as a Giant, where he got his first career playoff win as a member of the Seattle Seahawks in Washington, D.C. He's going to make his first home start where he won his Super Bowl. So, and I don't think Russ is going to be shying from New York spotlight at all. I think this is a wise move. I think it is the, I guess, less risky path, and they should take it. Jackson Dart's not going anywhere. Just let him sit, let him see, and then maybe he starts getting cups of coffee, and then maybe he does play the back end of the season. I don't know. Or this defense can carry the day. I mean, Dexter Lawrence is as great as they come, and he's now surrounded by Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and Abdul Carter. That front four is nasty, and all Russ has got to do with this offense, Neighbors being healthy, and obviously the rest of those young guys. Tyrone Tracy had a really good season last year. I love Scattaboo, what he might be able to do. Let's see if the offense can put up 21, 24. All they got to do, maybe they put up 14, 17. Defense coughs, makes somebody cough something up. Let's see what can be done. I don't think the Giants are going to be as disastrous as people are making them out to be.
Rich Eisen is our guest here on ESPN New York. His show, The Rich Eisen Show, launches Tuesday. You can listen to that from 12 to 3 right here on ESPN New York, 1050 AM. Rich, you mentioned it at the top that Michael Kay has been in that very studio where you're sitting as a guest. Our New York Yankees, let's talk about them. I know you're a huge Yankees fan.
I am.
What happened last week over the weekend against the Red Sox, as a diehard fan as well, was a disgrace. How do you feel about the state of affairs with this team? I mean, they beat up on the bad teams, and then they play good teams, and they don't win. So I'm tired of being teased by the Yankees this year.
Yeah, there's a few weeks left here to try and catch some fire. Obviously, there's reasons to have doubts on that front. I love Cam Schlittler. I think he right now, should the Yankees be fortunate enough, I think he's a playoff starter above Will Warren and Luis Heel, who walks way too many people. I would trust this kid and him spotting his 97 to 101 mile an hour fastball with impunity, and his ability to pitch. My son Cooper, 14 years old, who sometimes sits in here. He's a diehard Yankee fan. We were looking at him. I know this is crazy to say, but he looks like Garrett Cole. Like he's got it, man. And so, him along with Rodon at the top of his game, and hopefully Max Fried has turned a corner from that 6-week or 6-start stretch that was the worst of his career. That's all you need is those 3 guys pitching well enough in the playoffs, and Stanton showing up like he did last year, and Judge hopefully having a good October. And because it does look like the Yankees are not going to get caught. That the worst case scenario for the Yanks right now would be to play the wild card series as the team that has to play 3 on the road and win 2 to get through, which might actually be better for them. They're a better road team than they are at home for some reason. And just Aaron Boone's just got to make the right choices, man. I mean, it just seemed like the minute that, and I was at the game here in Los Angeles last year, Freddie Freeman's at the plate, bases are loaded. Let's not use the guy who actually is our left-handed specialist, who's built for moments like this, to get somebody like Freddie Freeman out and Tim Hill. Let's bring in a guy who hasn't pitched in a month, who doesn't relieve, and let's have him give up a grand slam home run. And ever since then, with the exception, obviously, of doing their best to recover from Juan Soto taking the money with the Yankees, the Mets, and building a roster using that money with Fried and obviously Bellinger, and trying to build as good a roster. And I know the first 2 months looked pretty damn good, but Boone just seems to make some moves that are a little head scratching. I think the sitting of Volpe for two days hopefully not only clears his head, but also shows everybody there's some accountability on this team. You can't make Chuck Knobloch look like he's dead on balls accurate. You know what I mean? So we'll see. And I'm hopeful. Let's put it that way. Hopeful.
Rich Eisen is hopeful. Well, Rich, welcome back to ESPN.
Thanks,
You said
Jake.
earlier 2.0, right? 1.0, stint one. Here
Yep.
we are, Rich Eisen 2.0. You can listen to Rich's show Tuesday. That's September 2nd. That's coming up next week, everyone. You can hear it from 12 to 3 on 1050 ESPN New York. Rich, always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. Continued
I
success.
appreciate it.
And
Thank
hopefully
you.
the New York Jets, how about a 9-win season? 9-8 would be a nice little change.
We shall see. But being, born in Brooklyn, raised in Staten Island, it is an honor to have a show like this one. Again, it's the show that I've been doing ever since 2014. It is not new. It's just with a new logo next to it, and it's our first time on ESPN Radio. We're on Disney Plus. And the ESPN app for those who want to see it. There's obviously our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. There's a podcast version of it. There's many ways for you to follow along what we do. But for me to be on in my hometown all 3 hours on ESPN Radio is awesome. I'm really looking forward to it.
He's Rich Eisen. My name is Jake Asman. Quick break, and we will continue. It's the Michael K. Show right here on ESPN New York and the ESPN New York app.